You are probably tired of hearing all the dumb, basic tips like group up before each push and use your ults together tips, which probably helped you while you were in the first 10 minutes of playing the game, but really aren't all that useful anymore. Today, I'm going to teach you the top Overwatch tips that nobody seems to be talking about. My name is Nathan, and welcome to Blizzard Guides. This guide is going to cover all sorts of tips ranging from interesting mechanics to things that people seem to just forget to oddball things that people need to know about the game. There isn't necessarily a skill range that these are intended for, so some of these you may have already known if you've been playing the game for a long time, and some of these might not even just apply at your skill level. I picked these all because they were things that are really useful to know if you didn't already, and there will definitely be a few that you didn't know. Anyway, let's get right into this guide. At number 10, we're going to be talking about one of the most important things in Overwatch, which is identifying win conditions. Learning to identify win conditions in a game like Overwatch will give you one of the biggest boosts in your understanding of the game, as well as a big boost in SR. The term win condition has been a popular buzzword in the Overwatch community, and specifically in the Overwatch tutorial videos, but it is legitimately something that every player should learn that isn't really just explained in simple terms. In short, identifying the win condition means taking a calculated look at the enemy team's positioning, their team composition, what's doing a lot of work for them, and what the kingpin of their comp is. Let's say if the McCree on the high ground is doing lots of work for the team, you should definitely get your team to flank and take that lone McCree by surprise so that you can get rid of the crucial threat and roll the fight with a bit more ease. If the enemy's healers are healing for free and keeping everything alive, trying to counter those heals by either booping them away, killing them, or anti-ing the tanks with a nade or something like that can really help you to win fights with more ease. The best way to naturally learn win conditions is just learning from your own losses. If you lose a fight quickly, identifying what went wrong and remembering that if you encounter a similar situation where the enemy mirrors what you did is really useful to learn. At number 9, we've got a much simpler one, but one that is often neglected: armor. Armor is such an important mechanic in this game that I am very surprised that not too many players really understand how it works, so I'll do my best to explain it. In Overwatch, all damage is applied in small packets of damage. Bullets work in an obvious manner, but heroes like Winston and Moira's do not. The important thing that you need to know is that while Winston does 60 damage per second, the damage is applied in packets of 3 damage each, so you can think of it like little tiny bullets that get shot at a specific rate so that each 3 damage packet does a total of 60 damage points every second. Armor relies on the fact that damage is delivered in packets, so bear with me. The armor takes this packet of damage and does one of two things. If the packet of damage is less than 10 damage, then it cuts it in half. If the damage packet is above 10 damage, it subtracts 5 damage. So if the damage packet does 3 damage, the armor makes it only do 1.5 points of damage. And if the damage packet does 50 damage, the armor makes it only do 45 points of damage. This means that for heroes like Winston, whose packets of damage only do 3 damage, and divas whose packets do 2 to 0.6 damage, armor reduces that damage by 50%. This is a huge advantage, so when playing heroes like D.Va, Winston, Moira, Reaper, or Tracer, whose damage packets are always less than 10, you should be aware of the fact that armor cuts your damage in half. However, if you are one of those aforementioned heroes, you can use your melee or more bursty abilities, so something like D.Va's micro missiles, to break through that armor. Melee is actually really useful for this and also for much more, which leads me to my next point. At number 8, using melee. Melee is probably one of your best assets to finish up kills or combo more damage while fighting at close range. If you watch any high level player, you'll find that they use melee almost every close range fight that they have, even going as far as completely relying on melee in certain combos with heroes like Doomfist, Tracer, and Genji. Melee is also a really good alternative when doing damage to an enemy with lots of armor if you don't have an ability that does bursts of damage. The melee does 25 damage instead of its usual 30 when attacking armor, so using that as an alternative to the tickle gun that you have with something like Winston or D.Va is very effective. Build a strong habit of utilizing melee and you'll find that you'll have a much easier time securing kills that might have normally been a bit more difficult. At number 7, a slightly more advanced but very useful mechanic. You're able to block 2 of the most powerful defensive ults in the game with a simple shield. Both Lucio and Zenyatta's ultimates are blocked by enemy shields as they require line of sight. This is something that I actually only recently learned, but that has completely changed my interactions when countering an enemy defensive ultimate. For example, when your Zarya grabs, if you're playing Rhine, you can use your shield to divide the grab into 2, blocking the heals from Transcendence to half the enemies in the grab. If you're playing something like Winston and you think that the enemy Lucio will ult, you can use your bubble around the Lucio to block the sound barrier from reaching his teammates, which is really valuable use of your shield. This mechanic is definitely unknown by a lot of players, so using it to catch the enemy off guard is a really high level use of barrier mechanics. Just remember that whenever you're playing a tank, specifically something like Ryan and Winston, and this does sometimes come into account when you're playing Orisa, but it's a bit more difficult to pull off, just remember that you can block that Transcendence or that Lucio barrier if he's just about to use it. At number 6, fixing your input lag. This one only applies to PC players, but basically when you're playing the game, your computer has to take some time to draw the frames and put them on your monitor. Most of this is done on your graphics card or GPU, but sometimes certain graphics settings are forced to be run on your processor or your CPU. When the game registers your input, like pressing W or mouse 1, which a lot of you don't do, the CPU must take some time to process that input and then react. If you have a lot of graphics settings that are loading down your CPU, the CPU might lag a bit to register your input, leading to what is known as input lag. This can be fixed by setting specific options to lower settings to increase the responsiveness of your mouse and your keyboard, which might at first not be too noticeable, but as you play more and more with the input lag reduced, you'll find that you'll land some crazy shots that might not have been normally been able to be possible due to input lag. I'll put on the screen the recommended settings that I use that have reduced my input lag from 50 milliseconds to about 7, which is a pretty crazy amount. At number 5, a quick one that a lot of players don't know about. Quite simply, the payload heals health. That's a really good incentive for those of you who don't like to touch the payload, but basically the payload itself heals about 10 health per second for the attacking team. This is really useful if you're playing an ultra mobile hero like Tracer or Genji that might need to get those last points of health up. Or alternatively, if you just won a team fight but your supports are still returning from spawn, you can stand by the payload to get topped off or halfway healed in the event that you're ambushed by some enemies. At number 4, utilizing audio cues. This is something that you accrue after playing this game for a very long time, but you can really speed up your learning process if you really start to look for it. In a nutshell, every single ability in the game has its unique sound or voice line, and typically every interaction also has its own voice line or sound. You could go as far as hear an enemy Ana use sleep dart and then right after hear an ally fall asleep. This is really useful because once you really learn every sound, you'll be able to have game awareness like none other, knowing what abilities the enemy has up as well as what connected and what didn't. Treat hearing like a radar in this game, as it was designed with sound in mind from the ground up. At number 3, the hidden control menus in the game. Quite simply, if you go into your settings menu and then go over to the controls tab, at the top right you'll see something that says all heroes. If you scroll up or click on that, you'll find that you get a drop down list of all of the heroes in the game. If you click on a specific one, you'll find that some heroes have specific hidden settings that you can enable or disable or modify to your own liking. There are a few very specific ones that you should always have turned on no matter what, and others that are at your own volition. A few examples would include, on Lucio, you can turn a feature called Allow Backwards Wall Ride on and be able to wall ride in reverse. This also allows you just to do many fancy things as Lucio and should really honestly be turned on by default. You can change the scoped sensitivity for Ana and Widowmaker, allowing you to customize your short range versus long range effectiveness when scoped in. Another good one is for Mercy, you can set the beam connection to be toggleable rather than hold to connect. And also, please just turn C allied health bars on for all heroes, it'll just help you know whether an ally needs to retreat or not. You can also take this customization further by setting custom control sets for specific heroes, some including scroll wheel jumping for Lucio, putting melee on right click for Tracer, putting Pharah's concussive blast on right click, and having Zen's orb on scroll wheel. These custom controls allow you to have more effectiveness on specific heroes, giving you a competitive advantage. All you have to do is go into the settings menu and set specific control sets for specific heroes to your own liking. At number 2, mastering hero switching. This topic honestly deserves its own video, so I'll cover the basics now, and in the future I'll cover this more in depth later. You really should have around 7 to 8 heroes that you can reliably play, eventually opening up to learning most of the heroes in the game so that you can flex and really use hero switching to counter the enemy most effectively. Figure out what makes the enemy comp work and learn what their weakest spots are. The most obvious one is that if they don't have a hit scan, play something like Pharah. You can also really just identify what kind of range they have, so if they don't have any ranged heroes, playing something like McCree McCree, Soldier, Widow, or Hanzo can really demolish their comp. And if they have ranged heroes, playing something like very mobile heroes can counter them effectively. You really need to learn what comps counter what comps and really learn the rock, paper, scissors metagame that Overwatch has when it comes to hero switching. Hero switching is a very core mechanic to Overwatch, but I see a lot of players not utilizing it, so really learning what hero switches work in the game can really help you win games a lot quicker. And lastly, at number 1, grouping. Grouping is such a valuable tool in Overwatch that is recently becoming more and more accepted by Blizzard. In the past, there were specific mechanics in the matchmaker that really made it more difficult to reliably queue as a group, but now that those have been lifted, you'll be able to actually play a competitive game as a group. The most effective way to group is in a 6-stack, as you have a very significant advantage when doing such a stack. As a matter of fact, the average win rate for 6 stacks is sitting at around 53% as of uploading this video, which at first doesn't seem like a huge advantage, but when you take into account that all other group sizes sit at a win rate within 0.5% of 50%, you'll realize that 6-stacking is a very good way to climb very fast. With the very near addition of the LFG system, or the addition of the LFG system as it might come out when this video is uploaded, this will become more normalized, so finding 6 players that fit your need as a player is a really powerful way to climb and learn the game in a much more fundamental way. You're really missing out on a lot of the game, and 6-stacking will bring light to a whole new facet of Overwatch that you probably haven't seen if you haven't been regularly playing scrims or pugs. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what guide you'd like to see featured on this channel next. I legitimately read all of your comments and I do take inspiration from what you guys leave down below, so please leave a comment if you have anything that you want to learn about. And if you have any questions about the game in general, leave a comment or follow me on Twitter and tweet me on Twitter as well. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like as it really helps us out. And if you really enjoyed it, consider subscribing and getting notified by hitting the bell icon when we upload, as we upload tips and tricks videos like these, as well as epic moments videos showcasing the best plays from around the globe. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a nice day. My name is Nathan, and this was Blizzard Guides.
Yeah.